study of tactics slash problems comes down to two areas. You're either studying for assimilation of problems or studying for calculation and problem solving training. In the session that we're going to have today, we're going to touch on both. But the key element to studying tactics in general is having an active learning approach. Because if you open up a tactics course on Chessable and you're just going through the motion, the only time I'm okay with going through the motion to say rack up points, that type of idea set, is if you have already assimilated the problem and you're practicing via Woodpecker method, which we'll cover in detail shortly. So I want to make sure that when training as well, that you're training with the intent that the work that you're putting in with training is harder than the tournament that you're preparing for. And you're trying to simulate or as close as possible to actual tournament conditions. And this is something that I do when I am running sessions for students and having tactics. I give them a time limit. I try to increase anxiety. I try to apply some pressure because you're going to do it to yourself in a tournament game. And I'll see it constantly with my young students. They'll be, say, 1,500 USCF and like 2,800 in tactics in your favorite tactics trainer on chess.com or Chess. But when I put any pressure on them whatsoever, they fall apart. They're not able to use that tactical prowess. Let's get with that assimilation process. And that goes along with the modern practice of using the Woodpecker method is the most popular way to assimilate patterns forever. And it has that same basis in how a child learns to read. We break down the basic principles of something and we're practicing it over and over and over until it is burned into the memory forever. And I often get a lot, well, I am not good at learning new material, or I am not, getting things quickly. I would beg the question, how many songs do you know? Because you've enjoyed the process and you're passively learning songs that are on the radio. You'll listen to something over and over and over, and it gets burned into your memory. So if you can also enjoy the process of what you're doing, I typically only study when I'm in a good mindset to do so, unless it's part of my habitual routine. I get up and do it every day. And I've got almost an 800-day streak on Chessable. So needless to say, I study every day. But with the Woodpecker method, it is very specific. I am studying the same problem set each day with the intent of eventual mastery. With a physical book, I will pick up and start on page 1, and I give myself an hour. And I am not finished with that book training 1 hour a day until I can go through the entire tactics book in that hour. And that will be appropriate for a book that is around 800 problems or less, and it is for basic tactics. And somebody will go, well, this will take 50 attempts or so. Yeah. But how often is it when we're playing tournament games and one of these two things happen? When you make your move, as soon as you release the piece, you see exactly what you should have done. You have released the tension. It's no longer your choice anymore. And when you relaxed, you immediately see the answer. That means you're playing with too much tension. And then on the other hand, as soon as your opponent's making the move on occasion, as soon as they've touched the piece, the tactic is already jumping out at you. Well, when we're studying this way, how many of these tactical problems are actually appropriate for your game? If you are a more solid player, and that is your opening choices, many of these randomized tactics trainers are, I would probably say 50 to 60% of the tactics come from E4, E5 games or Sicilian games. And if those patterns are never occurring in your games, that's wasted effort to learn those. I think more in terms of specialization, like when someone's getting a PhD when studying, rather than we need to know all tactical themes. Because if they're never going to occur in your games, why fill in the blank? And I very much feel that your approach to studying should be data-driven. So use your own data to drive instruction. And let's see. For the second theme from the Woodpecker method, we have the problem solving approach. You want to look at actual game scenarios with masters and try to figure it out and break down and have a thinking process. I find that a lot of chess players have an absolutely rotten thinking process because in their tournament games, half of their time is wasted. They will simply, on their opponent's time, just feel like it's a pass, and they're there, but they're not actually trying to problem solve, answer questions, and use what Botvinnik considered to be the best approach. And Botvinnik stated that on your opponent's time, you're not trying to predict what they're going to do. You're asking general questions about the position and having an internal dialogue, and that can guide your thought process when it becomes your time. Again, actual calculation is appropriate because calculation without a point is wasted effort. Like you can find yourself, it's more important to have the move selection first. And Kotov in Think Like a Grandmaster recommended, say, 3 candidate moves. You choose 3 moves and you compare those moves. And in the process of the comparisons, you're weeding out incorrect answers and inappropriate lines, and you're eventually getting to the right process. So today, when we're working with the harder problems, I definitely want you to kind of break down with that. So without further ado, had my lengthy introduction. Let's go ahead and jump in to some basic tactics that I would consider to be Woodpecker method worthy. And I have 35 problems here from upcoming text that I'm co-authoring with our wonderful introductionist, W.I.M. Morales. It is called Queens of the Chessboard, Part 1, and it's covering historical accounts of women world champions. And we're going to be analyzing key games as well as having tactics pulled from their games. Now, when I'm looking at the problem, Black definitely needs to stop this mate in 1. So Rook G8, and afterwards, most forcing moves is what we're looking at with every problem that we go into. And we've got an answer in the chat, and absolutely, it's queen takes, rook h3, and that's all she wrote. Checkmate. So I want to quickly try to go through these problems, as when I tested it last night, I was able to go through everything in about 5 minutes, and then we'll get on to the fun stuff, because I always feel that you should begin by warming up with some basic tactics. It can build your confidence, and generally, you have a better mindset when trying to solve the more difficult problems. And absolutely, we've got a comment, Anastasia, in the chat. And for these basic problems, feel free in the chat to throw out the answer. And is it queen takes h7 first or knight e7 check first? We are always considering those forcing moves to begin with. Yeah, oh no, not queen takes h7. Absolutely. Knight e7 check first, most forcing, getting that king into the corner, and then afterwards, captures and checkmate. Next. And I wanted to pull tactics which are essential basic patterns. These are patterns that are going to be happening very frequently in your games and will occur from multiple opening positions. So I feel these are essential. And in the chat, we're getting the correct answer and over is what I like to see. Like queen takes f7, and we're utilizing that pin to get the checkmate. Got to remind myself to give that first move. All right, so how quick can we get this one, guys? All right. Oh, full combination, full credit there. One move is not a solution. Rook h8, king takes h8, queen h4 check, king g8, queen takes h7. That one definitely gets full credit. Can we do a quiz? Absolutely. Knight f6 check looks like a good one to start with. King h8, rook h6, g takes h6, and rook h7. Absolutely. And again, I didn't give you the first move, but most of these problems, it makes a little difference because your mind already from tactical training and being strong chess players is drawn to the most forcing thing. And as we're already seeing, I've got a pattern with the first handful of problems that we're looking at, which is checkmate, because checkmate, absolutely most essential place to start with. And king h6 is the first move. And afterwards, let's see, we've got rook h7. And yeah, rook h7. And if king g5 instead of king takes h7, king g5 is going to run into queen takes h5 mate. So very light work there for us with excellent harmony with the bishop. And this is one of my favorites. Love this tactical theme. It looks as if the black king is completely safe, but no, absolutely not. Yep. With checkmate. Excellent. Moving right along. F takes. And if these seem a little basic for you, that's completely fine. It just means that you have the patterns completely assimilated and you're good to go. I promise you when we get to the next part, you're going to need some time. And then the chat will not be as helpful, I think. Everything takes on h7. That's the kind of calculation I like. And you got it, because the king is trapped by my own camp. So next up, we start with this one. And yeah, just like the Waffle House hash browns, smothered. That's right. Check. Give up the lady. And that's all she wrote for that one. Next up. Yeah. The rooks are powerful in an open file. Queen c6. Queen c6 and wins. I would accept queen c6, but is it the most forcing move? I am definitely most forcing. There we go. Rook a8. And afterwards, there's the king to go. And we finish it with checkmate. All right. Now, bishop takes. And we've got rook h7. It's a good place to start. And afterwards, queen h5. And again, the bishop and queen have perfect harmony against that open king. We've got two more checkmate problems. And then on to a different theme, which we don't know yet. So, rook a1. And now, oh, no immediate. Oh, we finally got one. Queen f4. You had to think a little bit on this one. Queen f4, yep. And queen f6 doesn't help too much there, as I think we're going to be in good shape. So if king e7, I'll pause from there. Yep, queen f7, good. And as the king runs, the lovely pawn assists us for that one. Excellent. Now, after king takes, definitely see the whole combination on this one from the very first move, because queen h5 should scream at you as it's most forcing. The two bishop f6. That is critical. Everything comes with force, because our king is not exactly in a safe situation here. And then we finish with queen g5. Now we've got the next theme available after b5. Oh yeah, I'm seeing the same names pop up. Oh, people are trying to type in queen takes d5 as quickly as they possibly can. Absolutely love it. Knight f6 check, and we grab the queen, and white is definitely good to go. And even if you're not that fast with typing, it's completely okay. More important that you're getting the answers. And of course, you can either look at the chat or not. Very, very important feature. So next up, we've got knight takes b3. Black got a little greedy by snatching that pawn, and c4, deflection, or as one of my favorite players, Ulf Anderson, will like to say, an interruption of the opponent's plan. And that's just pain there with rook takes b3 to follow, and we're up a clean piece. So bishop takes f3. And I like showing problems like this. The first thing we learn is automatic capture. But the first thing you should be trained to do with solving tactics is most forcing continuation. Always consider the most forcing move first in every position after the opening, I would say. Queen a8 check, good place to start. So after queen a8 check, queen d8, and then the powerful deflection. Yes, bishop takes f7, where we have your woman. That's it. Next, knight d5. And I think this was our first tactic with black. So let's go ahead and flip that around. So bishop takes f2. Good place to start. Bishop takes f2 and knight e4. What if, after bishop takes f2, king e2? Yep, bishop g4, chat's got it. Bishop takes f2. Would you like a free bishop? It's absolutely free and painful as well. Nice. And this is the last of the deflection / removing the guard. And another one of those essential themes. I like to, every time I see this problem, I think of a guy at the top of a ladder and we're pulling the ladder out from under him. I don't know. That's just my mental image, and the chat's got it. Rook d8 check. And if takes, loses the queen. And if the king moves, loses the rook. Either way, we got it. All right, next tactical theme. We start with rook takes d5 here. And yep. Oh, yeah. Queen takes d5. Check. Followed by the fork. Absolutely excellent. Okay, next up, we've got knight takes d4. Queen a4 immediately, the knight's going to come back. Put him in a situation where the knight can't come back. Yep, knight takes d4 first. And after bishop takes, now queen a4 with one of the backbones of tactical themes, the double attack. All right, next up, we've got h6. And I always like these problems as well, where the perception is, oh, the king's completely has all of his pawns around him. He's great. But no, queen takes h6, absolutely, followed by knight takes f7, where both the king and queen are hit. And endgame is trivial to win for white, as we've got this protected pass pawn. And in every endgame, all we've got to do is wait for the right moment for it to go home. And don't you just want to go home? All right. Next up, we've got knight takes d4. And I believe this is going to be a problem for black here. So what do we have after knight takes d4? And we've got that double attacking theme, and it's starting to jump out at folks. Most forcing move to begin. Knight takes d4. And after takes, queen g5. Principle of two weaknesses. I didn't see as many people screaming in the chat quickly on that one. So, highlight that queen takes. But excellent if that one jumped out at you and you found it immediately. And yep, another one for Black's perspective here. And for those who play the Stonewall Dutch, if you don't know this one, come on, get in there. So same thing, Slav, Stonewall Dutch, and occasionally this can come out of, say, Catalan positions where Black's played F5. You need to have this pattern assimilated. And Queen H4 check. And some tactics are opening centric, and this is definitely going to pop up. And I think that'll do it for that one, as well as the Stonewall attack structure, colors reversed. So my Dutch folks, or Dutch opening playing folks, I should say. So after B4, knight takes B4. Bishop takes B4 is a consideration, but if bishop takes B4, it wins a pawn, but no substance in the follow-up. Knight takes B4 is stronger because after knight takes, we have the potential of the discovery. And say, for instance, after queen D2, another important tactical theme, knight C2, as the queen can do nothing due to the pin. And everything is with force. Queen takes first. And now as we grab the rook, a winning position. As we jump to the next theme, and it is white to move here. All right, yep. The overworked piece. But I do feel that this could definitely fall under deflection as well. A4, getting the queen simply to look away from the defense of the knight. And that'll do for that one. Now, next up, Black to move after queen takes. And it would seem that H5's not going to do it. We have better there. If H5, probably something like Queen F3. And white will be able to maintain the knight. Yes, Queen D4. Queen D4, it's an excellent multi-purpose move. We're pinning the knight to the queen, as well as assuring that F3 can't be played to defend the knight. And due to our excellent pawn placement on D2, we're preventing a rook from defending the knight. And Black gets the piece back with momentum and a dangerous pass pawn. Alrighty. So on A takes, this one is also Black to move. I love throwing in an endgame tactic every now and then. We have better than Bishop B3. Seeing a lot of Bishop B3. I will accept Bishop takes C3 if you meant Bishop takes F3. As strong as a bishop is in this position, he can't stop both. And the bishop is completely overworked. And one way or another, the pawn's going to go home. All right, next theme. And we have white to move. And this one should definitely be burned into those who have my Master of the French Defense course, because I warn you constantly, don't snatch that D4 pawn under these conditions because of that discovery and utilizing the concept of the pin. Alrighty. So we're on pin. Yep. Rook F2. Loose pieces drop off. And how do you defend the knight? Only one move to go. Yep, G3. Just applying that steady pressure till the opponent breaks. Excellent. And next up, we got queen e2 and black to move. And this one should definitely be in the mindset of all of my e4 and e5 players. That wonderful pin. The bishop is so good there. Queen takes g3, and it's not just a knight. It's checkmate as well. The bonus. Righty, and so he's just taken the knight. And typically I would be nervous in this type of ending, as I don't see a fortress possibility. But I think we're in good shape, and the chat definitely sees it, starting with rook h7, most forcing move, forcing the king onto the g file, and now rook g7, where the 2-to-1 special is going to end up being the game winner for us in this ending. So next up, after queen c5, black to move. Oh, yes. So queen c5 and rook c8. Excellent, as the pin is strong in this one. After takes, check, and with an extra rook in hand, that one should be trivial to clean up. So now we've got bishop b4, and back to white's perspective here. Oh, yeah. I knew that this was going to be one as soon as I opened up the problem. Queen a4, queen a4. Take the bishop, puzzle rush. Fast, 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 fast. Absolutely. We take the free ones. That one is one that I think that's the second most popular puzzle rush problem that I'll see. The stutter step, the queen takes f7, then followed by queen f8. That one I get 2 or 3 times every time I do puzzle rush. That one sticks out to me as well. I think I've got that pattern down after doing it somewhere between a few hundred and a few thousand times. All right, we've got our last 2 from the easy warm-up problem set, which we've been going at a good pace, which is fantastic, because we will definitely slow down when we get to the harder ones, and we'll break down more of a thought process when looking at the initial positions. So, yep, queen f6, sorry. And then, yep, most forcing move, starting with bishop d3. g4, I imagine we can take en passant there. So try to see the full combination here. So bishop d3, king e5 after bishop d3. Then afterwards, queen b8. Yep, forcing king d4, and then queen b2. And the tactical theme here, skewer. So bishop d3, and let's force everything. And there it is, where the queen is going to drop, and we take those. And last up here in our basics, we've got queen b5. And let's try to see the whole combination. Queen takes e6. That is definitely the first move and a great place to start. If king g8 after queen takes e6, we win a knight. So after queen takes e6, if king f8, queen f6, yep, followed by king h8, and f4 is definitely a consideration, but again, most forcing, as if we can do everything with check, it definitely is going to devastate the opponent, and a rook drops. So now, be forewarned, we are now going to transition to more difficult tactics/problems. So I got you warm with these basics. So with the thinking process that you need to have for these next problems, ask general questions about the position. Very, very important to start that way. And if you don't want hints, definitely don't look at the chat, because I like the flow that we've got going. And don't just give me a single move. Sometimes it's going to require an explanation of why the moves needs to be played. So let's first start with a game from 1974 by the legendary Anatoly Karpov. And the first move is Queen D8. Oh yeah, something like that. All right, so some people have definitely seen this famous game. Uh-huh. So take some time. If I assumed that I would have one or two people immediately get it, but wow, I'm impressed, guys. We've got some studiers here. And as we see, there's no way to just immediately break the king side. We look at the other wing when we're stronger. And we've seen it a few times in the chat. And hopefully I'll stump you on one of these coming up. But yes, absolutely. The option is to get full harmony of the pieces. And this first move is very wonderful. Bishop A7 to kick things off. And this assures that black can't coordinate while white has a free hand in the position. And this is definitely what Karpov was known for. The squeeze, that anaconda style, where everything is in perfect harmony, and white went on to win. Yep. Alrighty. Now, next one, we're going to have another legendary world champion. And this one is from 1962. Let's first start with Rook C1. And what did Robert James, Bobby Fischer, do in this position? This is a Fischer one. Uh-huh. Queen C6, definitely a serious threat. We always look at the CCT, checks, captures, threats. So if no immediate checks or captures are available, or captures that benefit us, like C takes D4, then we look at threat. And Queen C6 is a great place to start as we're threatening mate. And after F3, then the overworked position on the queen side. You know, white's bishops just aren't in a great spot. So absolutely, Queen C6 to begin. Got to defend. So F3. And now on Queen B5, material is lost by force. That's it for that one. Now let's get to a more modern game. And so white is teetering on the edge of defeat here. This is easily the most difficult problem we've had so far. So if you don't see it immediately, it's okay. Take your time. Start with that most forcing move and try to see as much of the combination as possible, because there are a few key ideas here which are essential to see. If Rook C1, I definitely don't want to take with the queen if I have another option. So if Rook C1, Queen C1, that one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to take the queen. But if Rook C1, Knight D1, that is going to be the starting point of trying to break down the position. Do we have a strong follow-up after Rook C1, Knight D1? All right. Bishop C4 with the pinned bishop. And it is a good question. Yeah. If bishop c4, then potentially queen d2. So we've got a key idea in between. Rook c1, knight d1, and then a very, very powerful move. I haven't seen it in the chat yet. So let me get you a little closer. We definitely know we would play rook c1. Ah, we have the correct answers popping up now. The essential move, and I definitely give this one an exclam, b3. And somebody in the chat tell me, why is b3 so significant? And I'll parrot your answer. b3 is such a nice move because rook c2 is a threat. Absolutely right. The quiet move in the middle of the combination. Those are the most satisfying moves to find, to me, in tournament games. It's not necessarily the, bash, 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 straightforward tactics. No, moves like that. That's what makes me feel good. So after b3, we'll say a3. And now rook c2. It's an idea. Very forcing, very aggressive, very direct. But there was a move that improved on the main game. I think rook c2 is satisfactory, but bishop c4, yeah, even stronger. So now white just doesn't have a move, really. As something like king f1, what would happen if king f1? Yep, rook takes d1. Excellent. So rook f1, e4, another quiet move in the combination. And finally, rook c2. And that's it for that wonderful one. But b3, that one definitely makes me feel good. And next up, we're going to take a look at a much easier one from Grandmaster Shirov. Yeah, getting the answer first in the chat is the stress that I was talking about. Absolutely. I mean, whatever you can gamify the situation to make it more fun. I mean, we're learning, and hopefully you're having a good time. I'm trying to give that, positive energy to you guys as we're doing some tactical training. Why not queen a4 check? Absolutely. And let's say we've got queen d7 and rook d consider. If rook d7, I imagine after rook takes d5, bishop b7, rook e5, bishop e7, we've got a critical move at that point. So let's start with rook d7 first, after queen a4 check. So after rook d7 takes, yep. And if bishop b7, check. And the key move to apply more steady pressure. Bubba 4, absolutely right. Now back to main combination, queen a4 check. If queen d7, the far more natural move, which I believe was played in the game. Yep, rook takes d5 because, oh no, my queen. Yep, checkmate. Absolutely. Gotta love it. Now, let me get to our next example. And it looks as if white has a solid position here. And I believe this came out of a king pawn game. I wanted to say Tarrasch at first, but the pawn is still on c2, so it's definitely not a to rush. So where to begin? As in an opposite side castling position, if your defense starts to go, white has a ready-made attack to break open your position. So I am not considering moves on the side. In opposite side castling positions, we are looking for aggression. That is the way we defend ourselves. So, we begin to highlight the strength of this bishop. I would say that's our best minor piece. And in conjunction with working with the bishop, knight a4. Excellent place to start. Full credit. Queen b6. Queen b6, I wouldn't say that it's a bad move, but if I can lead with the minor pieces, which are going to be more aggressive, and white's going to have to react in the situation, knight a4 seems more flexible. We may want the queen on another square following up. So it's more dealing with keeping our options open to give our opponent more practical problems to deal with, is how I would define the difference between, say, queen b6 and knight a4. Now, with knight a4, it comes with also the threat of c5 to move the guard, and everything focuses on b2. So after bishop e5, here is why queen b6 needed to be held back, because we force captures in b8. So, and it's a great point, and this will often happen when you're analyzing, because this is a critical position in the game. Queen b6 is so natural to play as it gets some steady pressure. How long is the masterclass? We've got about 8 minutes. And then we'll do a Q&A if anybody has anything to ask me after we've hit that 1 hour mark. And next up, we're going to look at a position from one of my absolute favorite modern players. And I believe, yep. Okay. Oh, sorry. Like to move. So we start off with rook 1 to d6 here. And now, this is a game that Grandmaster Meyer played with black. Yep, from the Olympiad. And I was thinking somebody would eventually in the chat go, "Oh, I studied the pro exclusive Olympiad course that N.M. Tillis made. These more difficult tactics from chapter 1 of that course." And it is definitely, like, I had to taper off as I got deeper into the chapters, because I needed to make it a little bit easier. So I was getting some complaints. These are really, really hard. And I felt that, you got to have tactics at different ranges, problems at different ranges. So, okay. 1 to d6. And what's the most forcing move to start with? Oh, yeah, something to do with a4, but when? Again, timing is everything here, as right now, white has definite attacking harmony. And in every endgame, the a pawn is going to be a winner for us. So finding the best moment to send the pawn, that's going to be essential here. So I don't believe I've had queen c1, queen f4 is possible. Why not g5? What if after g5, queen takes h6? And then queen h7, definitely I don't know if it just I didn't consider it past seeing that I'm under dangerous attack when it is not necessary, as will be seen in the main problem. Mhm. F5 feels unnecessary, as say if we liquidate everything, our king is going to have trouble finding safety in the queen and pawn endgame if all the rooks come off. So I think F5 is going to seriously limit our winning chances. And I'm definitely looking. As we are running short time, I'm going to give you. We do have a forcing continuation. It was rook takes d8, rook takes d8. And then queen c1 followed by queen f4. Now, I do worry about the potential of my base pawn on b6 getting weak. So, I'll give you the first move. You were right on that one with exchanging a set. But the next part, what then? Yep. We got it in the chat. Queen c5. Another calm move in the middle of the combination. Essentially saying, okay, I pass. I've optimized my position, and I'm getting ready to make use of the passer. It's going to run. Because what can white do here to force you? Nothing. Bishop d3, the potential of queen e4, queen h7, f5. And now the moves are going to be quite logical, and it's based off of eliminating counterplay to eventually force the pawn home. And why I like studying the games of Grandmaster Meyer, he makes difficult, solid chess seem so easy. And with the queen located on c5, we've anchored to the pawn. We don't have to worry about the position getting away from us. And with the bishop still on the board, there's no perpetual check opportunities here. And slowly but surely, black went on to win in this ending. And let's see, we got time for one more. And this is from fellow Chessable author Sam Shanklin with white. And this is going to be more positionally based, a lot like this previous problem. And with 2 minutes, I'll get you started to start with here with bishop takes c5. And yep, we've got queen a3. Excellent with the pin. And now, when I initially saw this, it's like this is just perfection in motion of how to play this pawn structure. And I do believe this was from either a Queen's Gambit. Yep, bad bishop versus good knight. That's what I want to see. That's exactly it. That's what we're heading for. But bishop takes e4 immediately may be a bit rushed. Optimize the position first. And notice how Shanklin gets every drop of goodness out of this position before forcing any sort of trade. Knight b4. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Blockade. Keep the b on b7 terrible forever. Harmony. Again, fixing the pawn structure to agree with our bishop and keep his bishop bad. And every last drop. So patient, so methodical. And it wasn't the bishop we were looking to trade. It was the knight, as every single one of white's pieces are aggressively placed versus black's are defensively placed. And chess and boxing have that wonderful overlap that if you are not the aggressor, how can you ever win? And with full coordination, white went on to win that game. As we land the plane at the 1 hour mark, you go in something like chess.com's tactics trainer and you do, say, 5,000 tactics. Then you can go in and check your data to see your percentages and breakdowns of what you're missing. Then you go Woodpecker method, the areas that you're mixing to fill in gaps in your play. And you should definitely be kind of cutting down and saying, all right, if I'm a King's Indian player, Lee Chess, you can study specific King's Indian tactics. I wish we could get even more specific and be like, in the Sicilian Night Order, this specific variation. In the Bishop G5 classical main line, I want to study tactics just from that, stemming from my opening variations. Once we get to that point, I think it's going to be awesome. So I think you have to set some mental limit for yourself to get over that anxiety or to push yourself to get the most out of your game. And I'll often have internal dialogue that if I lose focus during a game, I always have snacks with me and stuff. You need to use the bathroom, go. You're hungry, eat. But if any other thing is crossing your mind during a tournament game, you should immediately go, how many hours have I spent training and playing chess for me to break down when it matters most? I zone myself back in immediately with that type of thought process. I'm like, nope, you change your body language, you do. How can you improve this visualization? I believe there's an excellent course that just came out on Chessable on visualization. And that author, I think, did an excellent job in showcasing those ideas. But in general, I have attempted with students to train their openings with them doing blindfold. So if you can't explain the ideas, the key memory markers, as I like to define them, and you can't reach certain positions at, say, like move 15 without sight of the board, that's a good way to improve visualization as well as to make sure that you got your openings down. But of course, you're going to need to be able to have a strong player there that knows their stuff to have that kind of conversation. I typically, when I analyze my games after the fact, I analyze them first without use of engine because I want to see my errors in logic. And when I have my students annotating their games, I ask first that they annotate what their thought process was. Like, why did you not go down this line? Because there's an error in logic somewhere, and that can help me as a trainer to fix those types of errors. I use the engine to try to see what perfection was and see why I am not there. Like, why did I play the way I did versus what the engine recommended? And it has to be said, in many positions, in a brutal calculation-based solution, which many humans aren't going to play. And that's going to be based off of your problem-solving ability as a person. And it's like if we're doing the to catch a cheater type things, when a weak player is using an engine to say cheat, they are going to just lean on the engine for every solution. And it becomes painfully apparent when you could just trade down and win a trivial, like, piece up ending. They'll do some sort of brutal tactic, one after the other, after the other, after the other, instead of just going for the easy win that doesn't require any calculation or effort. That's how humans play, or at least how I do. When you're training, you should be filling in gaps 100%. So what are your areas of weakness? Like, from my personal standpoint, I enjoyed recording Mastering Chess Middle games. That's like 35 hours of video. But from a personal standpoint as a master, there were many themes that were highlighted, but how many of those themes directly apply to my games? Because I personally, when I'm competing, play a lot of sidelines. So when I say I like studying players like Grandmaster Georg Meyer, he has a dry, clinical style. And to me, it's an absolutely beautiful way to play chess when you just allow your opponent nothing. And I'm always impressed by players who seem to have very simple, narrow opening repertoires that everybody can prepare for, and yet they just don't lose. And in the Olympiad, I covered the game in the Olympiad course between Carlsen and Meyer. Did I? I remember having it in my notes. I was so impressed that Meyer was able to go toe-to-toe with the boss. Which repertoire does Meyer play? Meyer is pretty consistently a French player against e4. And he mostly plays the Rubinstein variation. He's so solid. And Queen's Gambits, Nimzo Indians, and he's even included one b6 in his repertoire lately with Black. There's a handful of players that I'm a huge fan of, and he's one of the ones at the top of the list because he's the type of player that I enjoy studying. Like the games of, say, Ivanchuk, he's brilliant, but brilliant players can play anything. So he's not going to be consistent with his openings. Whereas with Meyer, he's always playing the same stuff over and over, and theory's going to change and evolve through his own games in lines. So if you find a player like Meyer that plays your same systems, that's 2,600 FIDE or so, and they're doing the same stuff, keep studying them because that's definitely going to help you grow. And what about Magnus? I mean, Magnus is the best. He can problem solve better than any other human that lives and breathes. And the difference that separates skill with masters is how we can identify the problem and solve it. So I think when he is solving a problem, he thinks in terms of, especially in end games, in equal end games, even more so. How can I set the most practical problems for my opponent, keep tension for them to go wrong? Because chess is all about, in human versus human games, how can I, say, get the opponent to go wrong? That definitely, the thought process with avoiding blunders, that goes along with, say, Botvinnik's thinking process. Use your opponent's time to ask questions and guide your thought process, because often blunders occur because careless errors, much like when a child's working in a math class and is working too quickly. So you guys have a great one. Thanks for stopping by.